Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Harris, and for those of you that might be new to our community, CARES stands for Community Autism Resources and Education Systems. We are a 501c3 non-for-profit that was started here in Putnam County, West Virginia in 2017. Since then, we have focused on community outreach, advocacy, and expansion of services and community to children and family on the autism spectrum. CARES envisions a world where all West Virginians on the autism spectrum have the tools, care, and support they need in order to thrive. And as part of that, we are now launching this 7-part series, which will happen on Sundays from 8 to 9 p.m. right here on our Facebook page and on YouTube. If you can't catch the live recording, that's okay. It will be archived and you can come back to it for future use. Since COVID has prevented us from really being interactive in the same room and space, I do want to welcome you at any point during this presentation to comment. We can see them whether you're on YouTube or Facebook. They'll feed right into us. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear about your family, your children, your concerns, and we want to help answer your questions and support you along the way. So with that in mind, welcome to week 1 of our 7-part series. Tonight's topic is CSED, which stands for Children with Severe Emotional Disturbances Waiver, and Title 19 Waiver. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Taylor McClanahan, who is one of our parents who joined our community last summer, or the summer before. She started attending our summer camps. She also, myself included, I have a son on the autism spectrum, and that's how I met Taylor. She also has a son on the autism spectrum, and she is a, what is it called? A Master's of Social Work student at Marshall University. So everybody, please welcome Taylor McClanahan.
Hi, everyone. Thank you guys so much for being here. Providing support and a sense of community for parents and family members having children with autism, or even taking care of themselves with autism, is something that is very close to my heart. I know that personally, mine and my husband's mental health greatly increased once we started participating with CARES and finding some of that sense of community. So I just wanted to go over.
So without further ado, I'm going to bring on.
I'm sorry. I wanted to thank everyone for coming. We have a few guidelines to go over very quick. Where this is a support group, I do want to emphasize that we're trying to create a safe environment. I want this to be a unifying experience. So please be respectful of each other. This isn't a place for judgment. This is a place for us to come together and support each other and realize we're not alone in our issues. I am a student at Marshall University. I have to disclose that by nature of this program, we wanted to reach as many people as possible. And so we chose this live format so that as many parents as possible can benefit from this experience. So because of that, any comments you make in the box, that your questions are going to be read aloud, your comments are going to be read aloud, and that will be seen live. If you do have a question or a comment that you want to be seen privately, you can call or text me at 304-760-9652. Again, as a parent, just like Sarah, of a child having autism, I am so excited to have this opportunity to reach out to everyone and to gain the knowledge that will be provided in this experience. Thank you guys so much. And I'd like now for Sarah to introduce Nathel.
Thank you, Taylor. Thank you for giving your time and your energy to this. It's going to be an incredible series, and we're so honored to have you.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so our next guest is Nathel Lewis. Nathel is a board-certified behavior analyst, or BCBA. She is the current director of Consultative Services and Children with Severe Emotional Disturbances Waiver at Diversified Assessment and Therapy. And she is the past president of the West Virginia Behavior Analysts Association. She's going to be presenting on Title 19 waiver and the CSED waiver. Welcome, Nathel.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm really excited today to be able to talk to families about the expanded services for children in the state of West Virginia under these two Medicaid programs. So the one is more familiar. Title 19 waiver has been around for decades. So the newest one that began in March 2020 is the Children with Serious Emotional Disorder waiver. So I'm really excited about that program, and I want to try to reach as many families as possible for another service modality for their children.
Fantastic. Hold on, I'll go ahead and get your presentation up. Give me just one second. Okay, can everybody see it?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay, if you want to go ahead to the next slide.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I was still messing around with the edit.
It's all right. I jumped ahead. I tend to do that.
That's okay. That's okay. We're running. This is our first time.
Yeah. I try to follow an outline, and I always jump ahead a little bit, so I get excited and start talking. So Title 19 waiver service, like I said earlier, has been around for decades. It's the Intellectual Developmental Disability Program, a Medicaid program in the state of West Virginia. It's Chapter 513 of the West Virginia Medicaid Manual, and it is pursuant of Title 19 of the Social Security Act in West Virginia Chapter 9 codes is what that service is under. So Title 19 waiver provides instruction, training, support, and assistance to eligible children and adults to assist in achieving their highest level of independence possible. So when you look at Title 19 waiver and we compare it to the new Children with Serious Emotional Disorder waiver, Title 19 waiver is more of a habilitative service. So we have children with an intellectual disability, and we want to make their level of functioning as independent as possible. So, they may not be able to achieve full independence as adults. So how can we prepare them and get services set up to make their transition into adulthood easier and provide skills and skill development to make functional academics and independent living skills more achievable for them. Okay, it is, again, Title 19 waiver Medicaid is a home and community-based program. You must be at least ages 3 or older. You can look at this as a possible lifetime service if you meet the requirements for this Title 19 waiver program. Then once you qualify, most individuals that I have known in families it's a lifelong service, so keep that in mind. There's no kind of limitation or requalification process as long as you reside within the state of West Virginia. To qualify for this service, you must have a diagnosis of an intellectual disability and or related conditions prior to the age of 22. So that can include intellectual disability, CP, autism spectrum disorder. So those are the primary ones. So with this, you must have a substantial deficit in at least 3 of the 6 qualifying areas. So that means self-care, receptive or expressive language, learning, mobility, self-direction, or capacity for independent living. Okay. We're on number 7. A person's income must be less than 3 times the maximum monthly SSI benefit rate. So to explain a little bit about this is if you have a child with a disability, they receive Social Security benefits. So I think the average, when I looked it up earlier, is about $1,200 a month. So some of the SSI benefits impact that. When you apply for the program, that's something really DHHR during this qualification process should be able to explain much better than me with that. Now, what I can explain a little bit better is bullet point 8, persons must have less than $2,000 in assets minus any allowable exclusions. So programs are set up within the state, the West Virginia Able account or 529A, or what are called special needs trusts that families can create for their children with disabilities to allow them to invest in their future, financial future, that doesn't really impact that minimum requirement or 2,000 asset limit for Title 19 waiver services. Next slide, Sarah.
I'm going to drop the West Virginia Able info that you gave me here in the comments, if anybody would like to take a look at that. And then
right, and okay, I also break those special needs trusts down a little bit more later on in the presentation.
Okay, you want me to hold on that then?
You can.
Okay.
That would be fine. Yeah, I prefer that. Okay, what is the question?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a question. It says we've been denied for waiver as well as CDCSP. Is CSED something that has different guidelines?
So thank you. You're welcome, Alina Davis. So children with serious emotional disorder waiver program, like I said earlier in the introduction, began in March 2020. It was enacted to meet the needs of children in the state of West Virginia that were being sent out of state because we do not have enough qualified providers for children with serious emotional and behavioral disorders within the state. We are in a foster care crisis due to drug abuse and addiction within the state. So we were not meeting many needs based on trauma, neonatal absentee syndrome, and this was one of the state's means to meet some of, to kind of rectify and meet some of the children's needs instead of sending them out of state. So with the children with serious emotional disorder, you do not have to have an intellectual disability. You have to qualify under a serious emotional disorder DSM-5 diagnosis criteria. So that could be anxiety disorder, that could be depression, that could be ADHD, it could be conduct disorder, it could be neonatal absentee syndrome. So, each one of those, there is not a specific set criteria for diagnoses right now with the CSED waiver. So I would suggest submit the application. You have a qualifying psychological, and based on that, right now there's individual review of each case based on need with that. So I always say apply for the service, and then there's an appeal process that you can have if you're denied under those programs. But the CSEDW program tends to have a broader range of needs, service needs for children, and a broader scope of diagnoses than the Title 19 waiver.
Thank you, Nathel.
Okay, I get this question all the time. Some families know about Title 19 waiver. Other families I meet as a BCBA under private insurance, and they're like, well, I never heard of Title 19 waiver. I also contract with Cabell County Schools, and a lot of the transition back to school I do, families are like, I've not heard of this program. And I'm like, well, I feel it would be worth for your child, for you and your family to enroll in these services. So when should you enroll your child? I would enlist, if your child receives West Virginia Birth to 3 services, I would enlist the help of your Birth to 3 service coordinator prior to your exit meeting for those services. I say the sooner the better. West Virginia had a long wait list. Governor Justice did a phenomenal job of kind of taking people off that wait list and opening up a lot of slots. That wait list is back. So I don't know what the numbers are right now, but there is a wait list for services. So, and you have to look at this point in the field of autism with early intervention. If a child qualifies for Title 19 waiver at age 3, they may not later. And I'll give you an example. I work with a family, and their birth to 3 provider did an excellent job of, during that exit of birth to 3 services, is getting this family or this child enrolled in Title 19 waiver. So while they were on the wait list, they went ahead and paid for private insurance, early intervention, ABA. So, and their child at this point is on grade level in speaking. So if they would have waited until the child was 7, which they are now, and went through that application process for Title 19 waiver, they may not have met the criteria to be enrolled in that program. So, but when they enrolled in the program at age 3, where there was no language, receptive and expressive language delays. There were self-care delays, such as not till it trained and so forth. They met the criteria for Title 19 waiver at age 3 prior to ABA intervention. So keep that in mind. So it's better to enlist and enroll in these services and then decide later on whether or not it's a benefit for your family and a benefit for your child. So based on their functioning when they actually get the service. Next slide, please. Okay, so how do you enroll in Title 19 waiver, the intellectual disability, developmental disability waiver? So one, you have to first complete an online application, and I submitted or provided the link. I don't know, we were having some screen sharing problems. Or Sarah, can you bring up the application?
Possibly. I've not tried.
Okay, that's all right. I can keep on
talking. Add it in the comments.
Okay, thanks. So pretty much you bring up the application. It's a really short application. You can submit it a variety of ways. When you fill out the application, you need a proof of residency. So it must include a photo ID or utility bill showing a physical address. So no PO boxes. If the child is 18 years or older, then, and they are not their legal guardian, you're going to have to provide guardianship papers. That application can be mailed to Keepro, 1007 Bullitt, Bullitt Street, Suite 200, Charleston, West Virginia. You can also fax the application or email it. So if you have any additional questions regarding the application process, then the program manager of the IDDW program for the state is Stacy Brose with the Bureau of Medical Services, and that's her contact information. But it's a real easy application. Next slide, please. So once you complete the application, what do? Once you submitted it, if you have not heard back from Keepro within 5 business days, then please contact them. There is a time limit for these services. And let me explain Keepro. Keepro is one of the managed care companies that the state of West Virginia has contracted for Title 19 waiver Medicaid services. So that's just the name of the company. So we call them Keepro in the business. Keepro, and then Melina is the payee, so who pays agencies out of your child's Medicaid budget. So Keepro has to approve the services. Melina pays for those or reimburses the agencies for those services. So those are the 2 bodies that West Virginia program. So if you haven't heard back within 5 business days, definitely call them. But you should. Usually they have a 48-hour turnaround window once you submit your application with contacting families. You will receive a packet from Keepro with a list of psychologists contracted to determine medical eligibility for that program. So it's really important that you look at that list of psychologists, find one in your area, and resubmit that selection back to Keepro within 10 days. If you do not meet that 10-day deadline, they will close your application. So if you do not hear anything from them, don't assume your application has been processed. If it's beyond that 10-day period, they closed it. You're going to have to submit or reapply for the Title 19 waiver program, okay? So 10 days, everything's got to be done within that time. Once you're found medically eligible through this psychological process, and again, the qualifying psychological for Title 19 waiver has to be completed by a contracted psychologist with Keepro, with this Title 19 waiver program. So you cannot, if you just had a psychological at Cincinnati Children's Hospital, it's not going to count towards this program. So they will only have qualifying psychologicals by the contracted psychologists within this program, okay? So once you're found medically eligible, a child must then be found financially eligible. So, and this is where we'll talk about a little bit about, or I'll point you in the direction to find more information about the special needs grants, to how to kind of, can I say that? Kind of get around? Am I allowed to say that and get around the financial restrictions? So your child kind of continues to qualify for these services. So once you're financially eligible, a funding slot must be made available to begin receiving services. You may be placed on a managed enrollment list or a wait list. So anybody that's been through the Title 19 waiver application process knows we have a wait list in the state of West Virginia. So how on this wait list can we access other Medicaid programs within the state that are now eligible or available for our children? And that's where hopefully the CSEDW program, that new program, can help bridge that gap with families. Okay, so other services may be available to your child while you're on the wait list, such as a medical card and everything. So keep that in mind too. So there's some gap services. Used to be called a waitlist grant. So I know it's another name now. So that can access some respite while you're waiting on this Title 19 waiver waitlist, because you qualified for services, but there's no funding slot available for your child. So there's some bridge services that can occur. Okay, to establish financial eligibility, you call your local DHHR office and they'll help you with the Social Security aspect of it. I'm not familiar with it. So what I am familiar with a little bit is kind of those special needs grants, which if you have a child and with a severe disability, you're going to plan for their future. So what services occur or what's available financially for them once they age out of high school. So, and most families are planning for that finance or financial aspect of supporting an adult child. So how do you do that? There's a West Virginia ABLES, which is a special needs grant, and Sarah has kind of like a cheat sheet on what these special needs trusts are and a breakdown of them and what might be beneficial for your family based on these needs. So there's the West Virginia ABLES 529A special needs. There's the third party special needs trust. There's the first party special needs trust, D4A, settled, and then the first party pooled trust, which is the D4E self-settled. So Sarah can provide you guys with more information on each one. But your child can't have any more than $2,000 in assets in their name, okay? So when they're under 18, that's not a big deal. So, but when they're over the age of 18 or they have some type of job or they work, then it's going to contribute kind of to that income. And if that income exceeds, that $2,000, how can you fit those assets without them losing their slot. So parents can kind of create this special needs trust for them to help maintain their eligibility on some of these programs. Next slide. Okay, children with serious emotional disorder waiver. This is the new Medicaid program in the state of West Virginia. Like I said earlier, March 2020, it was enacted. Referrals started rolling out in July 2020, and right in the middle of COVID. Hey, but we were going full force, full speed ahead. So, and having a really great experience kind of getting this program up and moving within the state. So these services, again, along with Title 19 waiver, you have to be a licensed behavioral health agency to provide these services. It was initially designed to meet the mental and behavioral health needs of children in the state of West Virginia. Again, we have a huge population. Most of those are foster care that were being sent out of state because we did not have the child psychiatric services, or we do not have the child psychiatric services within the state of West Virginia. And if you look at children with autism, we have a shortage of BCBAs even in the state. So there's a huge need for qualified service providers for any child within the state. So this is one of the programs to how to get children from outside the state back into the state and reconnect them with their natural families within the home and provide that therapeutic support that the families need. So this is considered a rehabilitative waiver. So the difference, Title 19 waiver is a habilitative. So when you look at habilitative, you're looking at increasing a level of independence for skills, and their achievement may not be complete independence or living on their own. When you look at a rehabilitative waiver service, you're looking at how can you rehabilitate this person so they function independently and productively within their natural family home. So if you look at therapeutic levels, so are they responding to therapy? So have they returned to baseline? If you want to look at that term, that kind of concept is that does not mean they no longer have bipolar disorder. They no longer have PTSD. Is the treatment working so they can be reunited with their families, live productively within the family unit, have minimal severe behaviors or physical aggressive behaviors towards their parents or siblings, so they can remain within the family home. So this operates in conjunction with the West Virginia Specialized Youth and Foster Care Program. Okay, you do not have to have a foster child. You do not have to be in the foster system. So this is just one of the programs it's in conjunction with to meet the needs of the children. Ages 3 through 20 qualify for this program. They do prioritize children or youth with serious emotional disorders who are, one, in psychiatric rehab facilities out of state currently, or have been in psychiatric hospitals, Hylon, Cincinnati Children's, at College Park, I believe, River Park. So those children are prioritized within the program because point of the program is reunification of families. They have to meet the Medicaid eligibility with serious emotional disorders who are at risk for institutionalization. So are your child's emotional and behavioral needs put them at risk for being removed from the family home, put them at risk for being part of the juvenile or court system, court ordered because they were kicked out of school because teacher filed assault charges against them because they had an aggression towards the teacher while they are in school or another student. So we have some children that are that first received their diagnosis of autism spectrum level 1 because of being placed in the court system. They got a diagnosis that qualified them for this program. and now they receive services under this program. So, and it's all prior to the age. They could be an 11-year-old, and their family knew absolutely nothing about autism spectrum disorder, or how to qualify for it, or how to get a diagnosis of it. So they just thought, hey, this is my child. He's a little quirky, you know. So, but it impacted their level of autism, or their spectrum of autism impacted them more in the middle school, where social skills were more relevant. So, and as a result, that may have gotten them kicked out of school or something. So, so this program helps with that. Okay, next slide, please. How can the Children with Serious Emotional Disorder Waiver help my child? You can apply for the SCDW while on the wait list for IDD waiver. So it is kind of a bridge or gap service that families are using. You can still apply for the program even if your child has not been in residential or psychiatric hospitals. Okay, so that's that's just how they prioritize applications. In 2020, we looked at 500 slots being opened for this program. In 2021, they were looking at 1,000 slots. And then again, by the middle of the year, another 1,000 slots. So you're looking at 2,000 slots open for children to access this service in the state of West Virginia. Okay. Your child does not need to be in foster care to be eligible for this program, okay? Short referral process. It's a 60-day from date of evaluation by the contracted psychologist. So there's a wait list for Title 19 waiver. There's not a wait list for this program. So, you know, look at how can you best and most effectively meet the needs of your child. So, and if it's this program, it might be this program. There's no set list of specific SED, serious emotional disorder diagnoses for this waiver. Each application is reviewed individually. So you can have a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder would not qualify you for this program, but a coexisting diagnosis of ADHD, anxiety disorder, depression, oppositional defiant, PTSD would qualify your child for this program, okay? And when you look at Children with Serious Emotional Disorder Waiver, I always say, oh, that's a horrible name for a program. That was my first thought when I read up on this program and advocated for ABA in this program. But I think when you look at programs, you got to look at, okay, what will, within a heading that someone reads, will get the point across on what this program serves. So, and I think the title does that, but I don't want anybody to be scared away from the title. So I like to say a diagnosis determines eligibility for a program, which can reduce a financial burden on families. So that's what you're looking at when you look at these Medicaid programs, and any type of service that you want for your child is what will reduce that financial burden for families, but also give you access to what you feel your child needs as a parent. So, and I say access as many programs as you want as a parent and as an advocate for your child. It doesn't really determine who your child or define who your child is. So, you know, I've worked in this field a long time. I've worked with adolescents and adults just as much as I've worked with children. And sometimes by the time a child is 30 years old, they have 8 different diagnoses. So don't be scared off if you apply for this program and your child comes back with kind of like oppositional defiant or conduct disorder. So it's going to qualify them for this program, where they might not qualify or be stuck on a wait list for years under a different diagnosis. So diagnoses are all private. So parents can share those diagnoses, or they can choose not to share those diagnoses. So I always tell parents, again with school, if you have a outside or independent psychological that diagnoses your child as anxiety disorder, ADHD, opposition defiant, and you go into a school and they also have an autism spectrum disorder diagnosis. So you can share the diagnosis that you feel best meets your child's needs. So as a parent, to get them the services that they need. So if you feel that's an exceptionality with the Department of Ed for an IEP for autism spectrum disorder, then that's the one that's most relevant. So, so my whole point is don't put a lot of emphasis on the diagnoses that qualify your child for this. So you know your child, it doesn't matter. Really, I don't know if I'm expressing it that well. As long as it gets your child the service, I think that's the most relevant aspect that a parent should focus on. So, because I know different diagnoses are hard sometimes, and the more diagnoses a family gets with their child can be very frustrating. So, and kind of just kind of elongate a service or open up more questions instead of answering questions for families.
I'd like to take a minute and thank you for expressing that point, Nathel, because I run into that too with families who are they're more scared by the diagnosis than they are by dealing with the situation they're in. And while they know the situation they're in is not sustainable, they're still really worried about stigma and about lifelong, perception. I mean, and I know you can testify to this too. The more support you can get your child, the better off that they're going to be in the long run. And in autism, you have different severity levels, and we see kids through intervention be reevaluated and qualify under a different category all the time. So
absolutely.
We're all humans. We all evolve. We all learn in different ways. And these therapies are just tools to use to support them in that effort. Just like school and education are there to teach them academics, we need to sometimes step in and support their emotional needs and teach them in a different way. So that's what these services are really for. But I just wanted to thank you for.
And I also want. Okay, well, hopefully I expressed it well, so I'm very passionate about that. But I also want to emphasize that for our kiddos that kind of are outside the box, especially our level 1 ASDs, some of those do not receive diagnoses until after the age of 8, so which is kind of the cutoff. If they don't qualify for ABA under private insurance or ABA Medicaid, you can get ABA through this program. So, and I think that was yay. So that was a huge advocacy in trying to get applied behavior analysis included as a treatment modality within this program during its conception. So I was really excited about that. And it opens up another whole kind of revenue or income source to kind of recruit BCBAs to the state of West Virginia. So fingers crossed. I just submitted a mass email to the BACB for clinical behavior analysts to kind of expand our services into this program. So we have 10 families right now that we service, and probably 8 out of those 10 families, their child had an ASD or had an ASD diagnosis, along with multiple other diagnoses. But they're getting services finally, and some of those for the first time, and they've never had services before under this CSED Waiver program. So I'm really excited about that.
Fantastic.
So as I said, yeah, it's really exciting. So it's exciting for ABA and BCBA all around. So because there's not a lot of job opportunities within the the state of West Virginia, and that's part of our gap in our services and being able to deliver effective and quality services to our families. Like I said, therapy-driven, the CSED is a therapy-driven service delivery model where Title 19 waiver is more of a consultative need. The CSED puts BCBAs or licensed psychologists or licensed clinical social workers right in your home. So this is a home and community-based program. We go into your home, we provide those services. So in the type of ABA services that are provided are more what I call clinical behavioral analytics services. Those are more kind of like behavior management services or behavior plans. And then we also mediate parent-child interaction as part of that. Next slide, please. Again, it's a Medicaid program in the state of West Virginia, so lucky for us, it's pretty much the same process as Title 19 waiver. So there's a link for the application. Again, when you submit the application, you're going to have a proof of residency, so including a photo ID. A medical card can be a proof of residency for this application, or utility bill showing a physical address and the name of the applicant. So again, proof of guardianship. If GHHR is a guardianship of the child, then we'll have access to submitting the application for it. And then of course there's the email application. So once you fill it out as a PDF, again, if you do not hear back within 5 days from Keepro, call the 800 number. Once the application is processed, you will receive a list of contracted psychologists, just like Title 19 waiver. You have to make your selection within 10 days or your application is closed. Next slide, please. Okay, services under the SCDW, so they're a little bit, like I said earlier, it's a therapy-based counseling, individual counseling. It's a home and community-based model. Services must take place in the natural family home, okay? Part of the services is you have in-home therapists, BCBAs count as or qualify as what's called in-home therapists, licensed psychologists, supervised psychologists, licensed clinical social workers, drug and alcohol counselors, licensed practical counselors. Those are all in-home support. And when you qualify for this program, you can select up to 3 agencies for services. So do for PTSD, traumatic post-traumatic stress disorder. So we don't do therapy for that. So you could have another agency that would do more of the very specific cognitive therapy, different services within that, but you have an option of 3 different services, which is different than Title 19 waiver. I think you have a service coordination agency you have to pick, and then a direct service agency. So waiver versus 3 leads. Okay, you can have in-home support services. So basically, that's your behavior support professional coming in. They're a bachelor's level plus 1 year experience. Under this program, all employees have to be trained on trauma, cognitive behavioral therapy strategies, anxiety disorder, ADHD. So there's a whole range of required trainings that even at the behavior support assistant behavior analyst as in-home support within this program. So you also qualify respite. Respite means a break. So there's in-home respite and out-of-home respite, and there are certain units for that under this program. What's a little bit different than Title 19 waiver is once they hit age 15 to 20 with youth services and foster care, is they do a job training, job coaching, independent living skills. There's also a transitional living service. So once they age out of foster placement or they graduate, then they allow certain funding to access apartments and furniture for your apartment or whatever you may need for your apartment. So it's called transitional living services. And your child can qualify for those services depending on their age. So, but it's from age 15 to 20 under this program. And of course, you have a job coach. You have someone that comes in and works on independent living, shaving, taking care of your clothes, washing clothes, different things. But again, this starts at age 15 under this program. There's also a specialized equipment access fund up to $500 per service year. So that equipment access has to be directly related to a therapy goal created by your therapist, or, in this case, the BCBA, for that child's needs. So, for example, one of the families accessed a child safety harness under this program, so they can more safely transport their 7-year-old to and from activities while we work on car safety as under this program for him. Another family accessed like a trampoline. So a lot of sensory needs based on their diagnosis. So trampoline, weighted blanket. So as long as it's related back to a measured therapy objective or goal, then it can be can meet or be accessed through this fund based on the agreement of the personal care support plan team is what it's called. This program also pays for specialized therapy. So if the PCSP Personal Care Support Plan team, that's your group of professionals that come together and help the families create, it's kind of like an IEP team, or with Title 19 waiver, IPP. Same thing under this program. They help create the plan and make sure services stay in the progression of those services. It's kind of like that checks and balance. So under this program, you can kind of access that specialized therapy, and some of those specialized therapies specifically listed in this CSEDW manual is music therapy, art therapy, hippotherapy. It does not pay for speech or OT. Anything that a standard Medicaid or medical card would pay for, it will not. So I know specifically OT and speech is not covered because I was in a meeting last week and we thought OT was covered. And when we emailed Aetna, it was not covered. So there's a variety of different therapies that can be accessed from this program that I think are really exciting.
Those are some very beneficial services there.
Absolutely. So if anybody has any questions, I think this is our Q&A time. Right, Sarah?
Yes. Let's go through. We have several questions that I have not brought up yet. So
Okay.
At this time too, Taylor McClanahan, like we mentioned, she is a Marshall graduate student, and she's going to, after we do our Q&A, come in with a self-care cognitive behavior therapy exercise discussion for us, because as caregivers, we desperately need to take care of ourselves too. So she has asked here if each of you could please feel free to introduce yourselves and tell us what you were hoping to receive from this support group. So if you could comment below and tell us a little bit about yourself, that would help her out in the exercise at closing. Jill McGlory asked, can children with autism qualify for the CSED waiver?
Yes, they would not qualify under that specific diagnosis, but if they have coexisting, such as anxiety disorder, ADHD, the depression, OCD, PTSD, they would qualify. So not specifically ASD diagnosis, but those coexisting ones that as they age are pretty familiar with families.
Sarah Johnson says she's applied for IDV waiver, hoping to get her daughter in a slot in March. She's not really sure of the resources that are out there that could possibly help. She's 5 and also deaf, has no form of communication at all, and she has a lot of behavior issues. We've also been waiting on a list for ABA, but it doesn't seem promising. Do we have any advice for Sarah?
Has she been able to access I don't know the name of it, but there's typically West Virginia deaf community.
I'm not sure of that resource either. I know that there's the only program I'm aware of, maybe somebody can comment below if they do know of something else, is the school, like the program in like north central West Virginia, but I'm not sure of any others. Does anybody know of any resources? If so, comment below. What about Sarah, if you're still on here, maybe we can do a follow-up with I'm going to put my email up here now. There's some more questions I'd like to ask and talk with you about. So let me put this up here now.
Yeah, it might just need more information.
I definitely would, because I'd like to know where you're located, Sarah, and a little bit more about your story, and let's see if we can find you some more specific answers for your situation. Oh, Crystal Barton added a link here for the DHHR.wv.gov. That might be something that we can look at too. Thank you, Crystal. All right, let's see where we were. Beth Winkler asked, can somebody qualify for both Title 19 and CSED?
Yes, you can, but you cannot be on both waivers at the same time. So the CSED waiver is more of a short-term service. If you look at the model in other states, it's typically a 6-month to a year service, transitional service. So where Title 19 waiver is really a lifetime if you kind of continue to meet those qualifications. And what I mean by that is once you're on Title 19 waiver, you're required, you have a service coordinator, and that service coordinator is required to do monthly home visits. So if you do not keep up on your monthly home visits, then it doesn't access your the funding for your child the following month. So that's what I mean by, if you continue to meet those requirements for Title 19 waiver. Typically families that meet Title 19 waiver with their child, that eligibility, it's a lifetime service in the state of West Virginia. So it's you don't have it if you move out of the state, but you continue to have it once you qualify for that entire lifespan. CSED would be a really good bridge or bridge service, since it seems to be a short term. So at this point, I know with the families I have, when the program initially came out, they were going to qualify annually. So any since it was a new program, any child that met the eligibility, it was a year eligibility for this program. So with this program, if they end up exiting out of the program, they can reapply at a later date. So it's not once they exit out or their team feels they've received therapeutic control over their behaviors. Parents are not having any suicide attempts. They're not having any elopement. They're not having any risky behavior. and they're not physically aggressive towards their parents or their siblings. And there's been a therapeutic control for, say, 6 months. The team may feel that they need to exit out of this service. That doesn't mean that, 6 months later, that they can't reapply because some other life event occurred. So, and when you look at children that are bipolar, they cycle. So a bipolar diagnosis, I would not recommend an exit out of this program until we know they've cycled several times and we still have a therapy control. So I was in a meeting about 2 weeks ago, and a parent asked that same question, and the Aetna Better Health of West Virginia rep said, you're on it until 20. So, there might be, where this is a brand new program, we don't even have an auditing tool to make sure we're meeting BMS's requirements. So they're still working on that audit tool for providers. So it might be that, it ends up being, if you qualify at age 3, you're on it until age 20. So at this point, I just can't answer that question. We were told it was a short-term therapeutic behavior management model as far as applied behavioral analysis. So, but again, right now, anybody that qualifies, you qualify for a year. That eligibility is for a year, and then basically at the annual anchor date is what it's called. If there's still progression to be seen, so your team decides that you continue to need the program. So it's whatever your team decides. So there's no additional psychological or anything like that.
Thank you. Let's see. Actually, none says we got one of the slots that opened up, my son's slot, starting in August, and we still have not gotten any help. She's called Keepro and filed a complaint and has asked to speak with someone else, but no one has returned her call. She's in the southern part of the state.
Okay, is this for Title 19 waiver or CSEW?
It doesn't say. I believe this was when we were talking about waiver earlier, because it's right after the waiver application link. So I'm going to guess it was for Title 19.
Okay. So with Title 19 waiver, there's a free, and with CSED waiver, there's been some changes in policy relating to what's called freedom of choice. So at one time, a family could have the same agency for case management and then for what's called direct services. Title 19 waiver is in a transition period where families are having to select separate service coordination agencies from direct service agencies. And what that has led to is a lag in services. I'm just going to be honest with you. So I know a family that I was providing Medicaid ABA services for came off the waiver wait list, and we were continuing to provide ABA services for in one of our clinics in Wayne County. And it took a good 2 months to kind of coordinate services with the service coordination agency. And is that right? No. But for some reason, there's a huge lag in services where there's that division now with Title 19 waiver. Has she called Keepro?
She says she has called Keepro and she filed a complaint, and she's asked to speak with someone else, and no one has called me back.
Okay, but she's filled out the freedom of choice, identified a service coordination agency and a direct service agency.
I'm not sure.
Okay, can you get her information?
Yes.
And then I can answer I can answer those questions for her once I have a little bit more information.
Okay.
But there is a lag. Unfortunately, there's a lag in services now for Title 19 waiver, even if families are off the wait list. And again, with Title 19 waiver, with the wait list, Governor Justice kind of doing away with the wait list right now. There's a huge need, and service providers do not have enough people to meet that need right now. So direct care staff, there's a huge shortage in direct care staff right now. So I don't know if it's COVID related. I don't know. So, but I think part of it is the wait list, with, thousands, 1,000 families was on the wait list, Title 19 waiver wait list. You guys might know that more than me. So 1,000 families came off of the waiver wait list, and then they went off to agencies, and those agencies really didn't have the capacity to meet their needs. So playing catch up with everything and processing, and then of course you throw COVID-19 on everything, and there's a huge direct care shortage. So people do not want to provide direct services because of COVID-19. So they're essential employees. You go in, you wear your mask, you have access to PPE, but some people are not comfortable, again, providing those direct services in that close proximity that you would need under Title 19 waiver.
I just have a question, and again, I'm learning too. I didn't know much of this information before this presentation, but I remember there was a 10-day period of response.
Right.
Does this have any implication possibly with her? I'm not sure the timeline. I don't have enough information either, but could there possibly be a need to reapply?
The 10-day, so Keepro, once you submit the application and the proof of residency and guardianship over the age of 18, Keepro has to respond back to you within, say, 48 hours. So they're typically really good. It might be 72 hours, but it's a short period of time. So they provide you with that list. So once you get that list of psychologists, contract a psychologist to do the eligibility psychological, you have 10 days to make that. So the 10 days comes into play after you submitted the application to Keepro, and then to submit back the psychological.
Okay. Ashley, if you see this video, if you're still online now, Nathel's contact information is streaming across the bottom. Her email is nlewis@datswv.com. Please reach out to her and continue this conversation and see what help you can get. Janet Vent says that she's applied for SSD for her 10-and-a-half-year-old ASD son. Without them even looking at his medical issues, they denied him solely based off of her husband's income. Would the next step be going with a lawyer or other suggestions?
This is like confusing to me, because I know families that get SSI, and I know what the dad or the mom do for a living versus families that do not qualify. And I know what they're, like the husband and the wife do for a living. So I'm confused by this. I do know if you apply for Title 19 waiver and you apply for the CSED, I think part of that is you get access to a medical card, and that might be a way to access or become eligible for Social Security disability benefits. That's a guess to me based on the application process. I'm not really familiar. I don't know why some families qualify and other families do not qualify. So I scratch my head at that all the time when I talk to families. I'm like, what do you mean you were denied? So that process with just Social Security disability is confusing to me. So if you've applied for the Title 19 waiver or the CSED based on your child's needs and diagnoses, I do know that can be an opening, because families that could not get Social Security when they qualified for Title 19 waiver then had access to the medical card, which might be different. But again, I think that might be your opening to access Social Security disability and so forth.
Yes, I was going to suggest that too. It says that he also has an ADHD plus anxiety diagnosis. So it sounds like while she researches the SSD claim and possibly reapplies, she could at least some bridge services through this waiver program.
Right.
Let's see. Hi, Teresa Mills. Nice to see you. I'm also a client of Nathel. She says she's the super mom of Kaden and a client of Nathel's. Janet also had a question here. Is income figured in with the CSED waiver?
No, I think the way it's explained, and I've read the manual multiple times, so that doesn't mean revision of the manual that it won't change. But as far as the waiver is, it's not income based. So I know with the families I currently serve, there's a wide income range with those families. So I did not see anything in there regarding income for qualification of the CSED waiver.
Okay. Let's see, where was I? Looks like some of these comments are for you, Taylor. Have you been monitoring them? A lot of these are people responding to your requests for information. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. I'm so excited to have everyone here and participating. This is exactly why I wanted to do this. I want parents to be able to come on here and not only receive help, but to be able to look in the comments or even catch it later and say, I'm not the only person going through these stressors. I'm not the only, I think sometimes it can be very isolating. And sometimes you can feel like you're the only one going through these issues. But actually, this is a good opportunity to show that we're a large group of people with needs. If I could go, is it okay if I go ahead, Sarah?
Yeah, let's go ahead. I'm still looking through these comments, but I believe most of the remainder are these wonderful families sharing with us. So
yes, I'm so glad everyone's here. So what I've noticed, not only within myself, because I am the parent of a 10-year-old son, Reese, who has autism, and I've noticed within myself and as a MSW student, I've noticed in research that parents and caregivers for children with autism are facing a significant amount of stress. These stressors can come in all kinds of ways. They can come through having to constantly travel to get your children to therapy appointments. They can come through having to advocate and fight for your children's needs and access to behavioral health needs, access to therapy, and access to basic public education needs. We all know it can be very stressful to have a meltdown at home or, God forbid, in public. It can be stressful to have that sense of people just staring at you in a public space, and you can tell that they have no idea what's actually going on. And it can be difficult. It can be stressful to make sure your child, whether they're sensory seeking, to make sure they have what they need, or whether they're sensory avoidant and you have to make sure, oh, did I turn the vacuum cleaner on at the wrong time? And now I'm dealing with a meltdown. So these are stress after stress after stress. And what happens when we continue to overproduce that stress is we're overproducing a hormone called cortisol. And after that cortisol is being overproduced for a long amount of time, there are psychological effects, like it can lead to anxiety, depression. There are physical effects too. You can actually have a lowered immune system. You could have a consistently upset stomach. You can have digestive problems. You can have heart issues from all the repeated stress. You can have lack of sleep is another issue. And all of this can lead to parental burnout, which is literally just an exhaustion. And that leads to negative self-feelings, either feelings like you're not doing enough, or I'm not doing enough, or I can't do this. So here's the positive note, because I just mentioned a bunch of really, frankly, crappy parts. The good news is that we're all here. And again, we can all see together that we're not the only ones going through this. So over the following 6 weeks, I want to be able to provide everyone with skills that help manage this stress. I want to provide you guys with an ability to help each other, just like who is that Sarah earlier who provided a link? I'm trying to see. I want to say
that was Crystal Barton. Yes,
Crystal Barton. What you did
she's another fierce advocate mom. Like, she's the one that told me about ABA and was like, "You need this." And I was in a gym class and my kid was melting down, and there was Crystal to say, "Hey, you look stressed out." I'm like, "I am." She's like, "You don't need to be."
That's incredible. And that's exactly what we need as parents and caregivers. That's exactly what we need. And it feels good to be able to reach out and help others. So I want to give you guys skills to help manage the stressors and skills on self-care, taking care of yourself, and self-compassion, assuring you that you are doing a good job. Because I feel like another thing that a lot of us have in common, aside from being the parents of children with autism, is feeling like we're not doing enough, or that we're not a good mom or not a good parent, or, whatever this negative self-talk is, or falling down a hole of, what if this or what if that. I want to give you guys skills to be in the moment and acknowledging that you are doing incredible. You're doing incredible just by tuning into this and finding more resources for yourself to help. But I want my goal by the end of the 6 weeks, I want you guys not only to have a sense of community, but I want you guys to have the tools needed to take care of yourself, to treat yourself with kindness, and to manage stress, so that we can all do a better job for ourselves and for our children, because that's what we all deserve. So again, I can't thank you guys enough for tonight and coming. I do have a little bit of homework for you guys tonight, and that's just that next week we will be having a presenter discussing feeding concerns and aversions. So try to think, what questions might I have? And I'm so thankful for Sarah and Nathel for taking our questions and concerns and answering them. And I really appreciate everyone. And I'm so thankful for this opportunity.
Thank you, Taylor, and thank you, Nathel. I think this was the best kickoff I could have ever imagined for this series. We didn't have major technical issues.
No.
We had great communication from our families. I'm so impressed by the comments. And again, I'm going to put up here one more time, and I'll put it in the links too. I want everybody to know how to get in touch with everybody. So again, Taylor has a cell phone number. If you want to reach out to her for any needs that you have, like continue conversations about stress, self-care, positive self-talk, her number is scrolling across the screen right now. Please feel free to reach out to her. I'm Sarah. I'm the Director of CARES. If you have any questions I can help you answer, my cell phone and my email address are also streaming across the bottom. If you have suggestions for topics or programming that you'd like to hear about, send those to me too. We'd like to continue this for as long as we can, as long as there's an interest and a need. So there's that information. Nathel, I'm going to find yours real quick here. Nathel, if you want to ask questions, you can contact, this is actually the main office number, the 304-453-2800. That'll take you to Diversified's main office. Katie mostly answers the phones there, right?
Yeah, Katie is our clinic. So we have adult services and then we have child services. So when you look at the services I provide, we call those the child service division versus the adult division, which you find in Title 19 waiver. So the phone number for Katie would be 304-429-3287.
Had the wrong number up there. So I will post that in the comments as well.
Right.
But
if you call
email address.
Right. But if you call the main office number, they can forward you to our ABA clinic, which is Katie. So she'll be able to answer your questions.
Fantastic. All right. And just as a heads up, to be meeting with Brooke Cunningham, who is an SLP at the Childhood Language Center. We're really excited to talk about feeding concerns. If you have any questions that you want to post in advance, the event link is already up on our CARES Facebook page. Go ahead into the discussion, put your questions there, and I will make sure that Brooke and all of us are prepared to help you answer those to the best of our ability. I'd also like to invite all of you to go onto our CARES page. We have a event at the Clay Center, which is a free family event on February 28th from 5 to 7 p.m. that still has some openings. We received grant funding through Autism Speaks to help with our summer programming, and due to COVID, we weren't able to use all the funding. We really had to streamline our resources and change our format, which was not terrible. And now we have extra money, and we're renting the Clay Center out, and we're inviting you to come and participate. We do have a limit of 50 per event so that we can help maintain social distancing to keep you safe and your children safe. So get on there now. It's a Google Doc. Just sign up, get your spot now. And then also, Nathel, I did drop the waiver form in these comments. I'm going to post her PowerPoint presentation in here as well. And then what were the other two forms? The West Virginia ABLE and the Children with Severe Emotional Disturbances waiver.
Yes.
So I think all of those are in the links. And before we go, I'm going to drop this PowerPoint in there.
Sarah, before we go, could I address a couple comments I'm seeing?
Absolutely. I have not been looking at them. So yes, go ahead.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll just talk while you're dropping the link, if that's okay. So Crystal, I see your comment. You're absolutely not alone. My son, his speech severely progressed as a result of COVID. Behavior with him. Anger, he's always been a happy child and never had an angry outburst. And I don't know if it was just the right combination of exterior factors and change in routines with COVID and the fact that he's now a 10-year-old and hitting the preteen stage. But we definitely saw some regression and anxiety. And the first thing I want to address is that we're all anxious. So it's totally normal for him to feel anxious. Of course, we're going to reduce these behaviors. But everyone is so torn up over this. And I've spoken to my grandmother-in-law. She's anxious about it, and then down to preschoolers, they're anxious about it. We're all probably sick of hearing this, but these really are unprecedented situations. One thing, and please feel free to put in the comments, other parents, what you found to help relieve your child's anxiety. I know my son has an incredible teacher, and she gave the students a social story about COVID, and for changed for them, and the social story really helped him. So that's my personal piece of advice. Another thing is validating. You know, I tell my son, I know this sucks. I know you want to go, you know, go wherever you want to go. I know you want to go back to school. I know you don't want to wear the mask. Be sure to keep validating them. It's not fair for anyone to say, you know, like, suck it up or pretend nothing's wrong. You know, it is a very anxious situation. I'm sorry you're going through it. I'm sorry we're all going through it. I hope you find methods that help ease him and relax him a little bit about it. What helped my son some was the social story. To Janet, when you say I feel like a failure on a daily basis when it comes to my son, that breaks my heart, because you're not a failure. I can tell by you here and reaching out for help, you're absolutely not a failure. You're wonderful, and you're trying. If you can go to bed tonight and just congratulate yourself for looking for help tonight, that's something you did for you and your son. That was so important. I'm seeing that, Janet, your son had a big increase in anxiety over COVID too. I'm so sorry you guys are going through this, but I'm happy that we now have a forum where we can discuss it with each other and discuss these things and stressors as they come up. Like I said, tonight, everyone, just congratulate yourself and know you did good by coming here. If you have a negative thought, like, I didn't do enough today, I didn't do the dishes today, I, you know, made my child have another meltdown today, whatever you're beating yourself up with, I really want you to focus on turning that around and saying one good thing you did today, or one effort you put in today, because you deserve the kindness that you're wanting to reach out and give others, and you deserve the kindness you want to give your children. And your children need you, and part of that, a big part of that, is you taking care of you.
That was beautifully shared, Taylor. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for reading these comments. Let's see, did we miss any others before we go? Janet also said the news has been a big trigger for her kids too. I know that's been something that's, I have to watch what my son listens to and hears, because he very much mimics and repeats everything that he hears. And he also doesn't have a filter, so he'll say it in public. He'll tell people his political beliefs based on what the media just told him to say, which is sometimes funny. So,
one thing is, we have cell phones now. I personally believe it's important to have open discussions with your children if they mention or indicate that things on the news are bothering them. I think it's important to talk to them because in this age, they're going to see it from a friend's phone or hear it on the radio. They're going to find out, if they end up going back into in-person school, they're going to catch wind of scary issues. So I think it's important for you to validate them and say, yeah, that would make me upset too, but we're going to be okay. And always try to end it on a positive. Here's something, what I tell my daughter, who's 6 and has a lot of anxiety when she hears coronavirus-esque things. I say, well, I know it sucks, but we're all healthy. I try to think of one positive thing I can give to them. Please don't leave it on a negative note. Don't let them feel like they're alone in their worries. Because if you're anxious or upset about something, even if you try to hide it, your kids are going to know.
Oh, absolutely.
They're going to know. From my 10-month-old baby to my 10-year-old son, they know if you're off. So I think it's important to be honest, but in an appropriate way, a child appropriate way with them, and to let them know it's okay to feel nervous about these things, but take a deep breath and we're going to get through. If you guys want to take this away, this is what I do with my daughter to help her anxieties. You can say things like, I can do this. You can say, I'm safe at home. And this is a way for them to stop, take a moment. And so if you guys want to try to do that with homework, if your children would like it, try to find out a mantra. You can do it for yourself too, finger to thumb, to help put you back in the moment and give yourself a positive note to move forward with. I see someone said that their child makes them spray their bed with sanitizing spray before they'll go to bed. I know that can be heartbreaking as a parent, but at this point, it's making your child it's helping your child feel comfortable. I'm sorry you're going through that. I know that has to be hard and heartbreaking for you. I think it's nice that he calls and pray. I know a lot of people, spirituality is their outlet to help them feel better. And, you can encourage, use your beliefs to help, again, bring positivity and a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, and a street light right above you. Just don't forget the good, and try to put the good front and center, while not acknowledging the bad. I thank you guys so much for being so open and honest with these things that are bothering you. But I'm so thankful that you're here, you're discussing things, you're reaching out to each other. I really congratulate yourself on that, because that's very important.
Janet and Crystal, I would like to, I want to invite everybody, but go on our Facebook page. And if you're able and you're in this area, I'm not sure where you're from, Janet, but come join us at the Clay Center. You have so much in common with all of us. You are definitely not alone. So if you can come and attend that event, we'd love to meet Lucas. Crystal, I'd love to see your kids. Gosh, I've not seen them since we were allowed to go sit and drip. So God knows how long that's been. But Boone County, that's not far. You should come up to the Clay Center on the 28th. How old is your son, Janet?
I believe she said 10 earlier. I think we both
said 10 as well. I have a 10-year-old son as well. So, yeah, that would be fun. They could get together and kind of have normal for, an hour or two.
And we certainly have something in common. It's nice. I think one of the most healing things is talking to others who are going through what you're going through.
It is February 28th, which is a Sunday, from 5 to 7 p.m. There's a link on our Facebook page. So if you go there and click on it, it's a really quick form. And you can fill that out and come join us. Oh, Crystal, I'm sorry to hear that. I understand. And Deidre, you're absolutely right. Finding your people is the key. And that's what CARES really aims to do, is to connect you with your people. Because without these conversations and without the sharing from professionals and providers like Nathel, parents who have experienced these things, firsthand, we don't have much. So we need that. We definitely need that now more than ever.
Absolutely. Well, thank guys so much for coming. One more time, I don't mean to sound like a broken record. I just want to remind you guys, be kind to yourself tonight, every day of the week. Find one thing you are proud of yourself for doing. If what you're proud of yourself for doing is getting out of bed, that's something. You acknowledge that you're doing your best and you're trying your best, and be proud of yourself for that.
All right, everybody. Please feel free to reach out to us at any time during the week, and we will see you here next Sunday at 8 o'clock. Thank you so much, Nathel.
Thank you guys for inviting me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.